Thank you for joining us for our monthly webinar series from Local Market Monitor, where we take a closer look at this month's National Economic Outlook, which was written by Local Market Monitor's president, Ingo Windsor. For those of you that don't know Ingo, he has been analyzing real estate markets for over 30 years and is a graduate of MIT and Boston University. He is not your typical economist and has a knack for taking complex data, extracting what is important, and providing unique insights and tangible guidance on real estate markets. So with that, I bring you Ingo and his insights on the economy.
Thanks, Carolyn. Every month we look at new data so we can get a better understanding of where the economy is headed and what that means for real estate markets. We mainly look at what's happening with jobs because more jobs mean more demand for housing. This month, we'll look at some alternative ways to interpret the job data. First of all, the economy is doing better. Here's a picture of the total job situation compared to the level just before the pandemic. We're only 0.5% from being back to even, which is a good sign for 2022. On the other hand, there was no improvement from November to December, quite possibly because of the rapid spread of the Omicron variant. As we'll now see, very few sectors of the economy are actually showing growth. Some are almost back to zero, and a few look like they've lost jobs for good. Finance is one of the few sectors actually contributing positive growth right now. That's partly because very few finance jobs were lost when the pandemic struck, and partly because the recent surge in home prices has prompted a lot of mortgage activity. Jobs in construction recovered early, but now apparently have maxed out. Much of this is due to the home price surge, which prompted more home building. But construction is not yet leading the economy to higher levels, as is often the case following a recession. Much like the situation in construction, jobs in retail are back to their pre-pandemic level, but show no sign of doing better. Online shopping had already limited retail jobs before the pandemic, so it's no surprise that this won't be a growth sector in the future. In manufacturing, jobs are not yet back to the old level, very likely because COVID still periodically shuts down activities like meat processing, where employees work very closely together. And the recapture of jobs from overseas will be a slow process we won't see for a while. In healthcare, the situation is worse. Job losses now look like they're permanent, and we need to reset our expectations of what future growth will look like in healthcare. The pandemic has forced many businesses to take a close look at how many workers they actually need and can afford. The situation in government is similar. Whatever may happen with the current problems affecting school reopenings and remote learning, it looks like a lot of jobs in this sector will not come back until local government finances are healed, which will take years. And even though many more restaurants have reopened, they've had a plateau of jobs that looks like permanent losses. Now we get to the only major sector where jobs have forged ahead of the pre-pandemic level, business services. Recovery in this sector has been steady ever since the initial loss of jobs in early 2020. So it's not surprising to see positive growth in this sector, but a closer look at the data may say one thing or another. One major part of business services that's clearly recovered is the 2 million jobs in computer systems design. Everyone can agree on that. Another major part of business services is employment agencies that supply about 3 million temporary workers. And this is where the data can be seen from different points of view. Temporary work was a rapidly growing phenomenon well before the pandemic, so it's not surprising that the pandemic would accelerate that trend, just as it has accelerated other trends like remote working. On the other hand, companies usually hire more temporary workers in the months before Christmas. So are we seeing the trend of more people now wanting temporary jobs, or just the same old seasonal thing? The Bureau of Labor Statistics calculates seasonally adjusted jobs, how many jobs there should be based on the seasonal patterns of previous years. Using this seasonally adjusted data, temporary jobs look like this, still well below where they should be. And if this reasoning is applied to other kinds of jobs, then the economy is nowhere near back to zero, and the prospects for 2022 are a lot more pessimistic. Here's the total job picture using these seasonally adjusted figures. But adjusting numbers to fit with previous patterns is a tricky business, especially when we're in an unprecedented situation, unprecedented situation that may be breaking old patterns, which is why I always prefer to see what the real numbers say. I happen to think the pandemic is producing major changes in how businesses will operate, how people view work, and how the economy will run. I think that we can't yet measure these changes properly, and I think the economy in 2022 will in fact improve rapidly. But the numbers don't necessarily back me up. That's it. In this time of uncertainty, let me plug our investors' metro analysis, which shows how best to invest in this environment, how much risk you face in a local market, and the best rent range for investment in each local zip code. Available for 200 markets, it's as easy to use as 1, 2, 3. Thanks very much for following along. This is our National Economic Outlook. I'm Inga Windsor.